Let's now bring in legal practitioner Inibe Effiong, also an activist, joins us virtually on the program. Mr. Effiong, good morning, and well, Happy New Year will be in order, I guess.
Good morning, Kayode. Always a pleasure.
Here we are again, Mr. Effiong. Impeachment proceedings in Rivers State. It's been a long 3 years, and I think the highlights will definitely be all of this political drama, in spite of the fact that Rivers State is arguably one of the richest states in Nigeria in terms of its deposits, people and all of that. But what keeps coming out is this political drama. So let's speak to the constitutionality of it or otherwise, and what the future looks like, at least with this impeachment, latest one. All right, connections frozen with Mr. Effiong, but it's important to understand what the law says about this and what this process would look like under the law, even though we know that it's more political than legal. But Mr. Effiong, I see we have you back. Please go ahead. Or do we have you back? Doesn't look like we really have you back just yet. One of those mornings where the internet just decides to act up. But Charles, let's come back to you for a moment and speak to the politics of this. Okay, I understand that Charles also is out. We need an intervention with internet. But guys, there's the politics of it, and there's a legality of it, constitutionality of it, or what you call the legislative angle. But it looks like what is playing out is actually politics, which is using the law as a tool.
Yeah, and we cannot ignore, the items under gross misconduct that the State Assembly members have presented to the public, and some of which they have identified as refusal to present commissioners for confirmation, a breach of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. I recall that the Speaker was in fact, talking emphatically about how, Rivers funds are being, taking to the dollar market. Some of the things that we've been hearing consistently about allocations, and then the impact on the value of the naira against the dollar in the last couple of years. Some of those things certainly cannot be ignored. But as Kadi has asked, one of the things that we should be asking is, because the Constitution, defines grounds of misconduct, grounds for impeachment as gross misconduct. So what constitutes gross misconduct under the Constitution? Have the areas identified by the Rivers State Assembly lawmakers, have they, aggregated somewhat to constitute gross misconduct? How should we be interpreting that? Let's have Mr. Inibe Effiong back now on the program. Mr. Effiong, you have your work cut out already, so help us understand, have these allegations come together to constitute gross misconduct?
Thank you. Let me start by saying that what is publicly available is the letter signed by the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Mr. Matthew Amawele, addressed to Governor Similare Fubara. We have not seen the actual notice of impeachment yet. What is available, the one-page letter, is not the notice of impeachment. I want to make that point clear. The actual notice of impeachment is attached. So it goes together. You have the allegations, notice of allegations of gross misconduct. If you read that letter, you see where it is stated that it is attached. So it is in that document that we will now see the specific allegations, because the Constitution says that the allegations must be specific, the particulars must be provided. But based on what is available in the public domain at this time, it does appear that the House of Assembly of Rivers State is accusing the governor of certain constitutional breaches, yet to be proven, certain constitutional breaches. Oh, the governor has not presented the budget, the governor is carrying out expenditure without legislation, so and so on and so forth, without the approval of the House, matters pertaining to nominations of commissioners and so on. The one that I found rather curious, they are also accusing the governor of not keeping to the terms of the political settlement agreement between the governor and Wike, which the president Bola Ahmed Tinubu initiated. I do not understand the basis for saying or inferring that refusal to keep to a political understanding or a political agreement amounts to miscarriage of the Constitution. The process for removal of governor and deputy governor are outlined. What has happened now is that essentially the notice of impeachment has been presented, has been served on the Speaker of the House, signed by at least 26 members, signed by 26 members of the House. The Speaker, that notice has been read on the floor of the House. I think that the leader of the House, the governor, the Speaker must now ensure that within 7 days, that notice must be served on the governor and the deputy governor. The governor would then be required to offer his response, his reply in writing to the allegations of gross misconduct leveled against him. Upon receipt of the reply, the Speaker must then bring back the matter whether the notice and the allegations is to be investigated or not. And that requires 2/3 majority of the members of the House of Assembly. If they resolve, as we expect they will, that the allegation be investigated, the Constitution requires that the chief judge of the state shall within 7 days impanel a 7-member committee and that to investigate the allegations against the governor, where the panel, which is to be constituted by eminent persons, persons of integrity, comes to a decision that the allegations are not proved, the impeachment proceedings shall abet, and no further steps shall be taken in respect of impeachment. But when the House will then have to vote, and they require 2/3 to approve that the governor be removed based on the indictment. So this is essentially the process. Now, in the Rivers case,
Mr. Ifeong, well, we hope that you return very quickly. But what I was, Mr. Ifeong, are you back? Are you back with us? All right. It's the internet that is dictating the tune this morning, right after receiving payment, as Kayode implied earlier. But what I was waiting for Mr. Ifeong to categorically tell us would be a yes or no about whether the allegations that are being leveled by the State Assembly members against the governor have come together and amounted categorically to gross misconduct and is, ideal grounds for impeachment. Of course, all the other processes are also necessary to arrive at an impeachment impeachment destination where the governor may be impeached. We don't know whether this will sail through, but are the allegations grounds enough for impeachment?
I think that is up for determination by the panel that will be set up by the chief judge. That's their job, to look at what has been. So if you look at 188, it clearly says that it is what the House, based on the interpretation of the Supreme Court, considers to be gross misconduct. And they've listed about 7 things in their, the list they put out in the motion that commence this impeachment proceedings.
I think they added 1, actually, so made it 8.
Maybe 8 about that. So I know they talked about reckless and unconstitutional spending of public funds, because by law, this is public funds. You can't spend without an appropriation. The only thing the law allows you to do in spending in the new year is so for instance, now there's a 2025 budget. You can run all the way to June. But after that, based on Section 122, of the Constitution. After that, you can't spend anymore, and there are boundaries to it. But Mr. Nibe, we want to be sure you can hear us. Can you hear us?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Bukola was asking, our question was actually, and we did say that, of course, the panel will decide whether all of these things they've leveled against the governor has constituted gross misconduct. But from your expertise as a lawyer, do you see the things they've raised? Let me reread some of them. Reckless and unconstitutional spending of public funds, obstructing the House of Assembly from performing our constitutional duties, conniving to allow unauthorized persons to occupy offices without proper screening by the House of Assembly, approaching another group of people for budgetary approval instead of the River State House of Assembly, seizure of salaries and allowances accruing to the River State Assembly and the Assembly Service Commission, that's among other things. So this is what they put out, this is what the committee or the panel, if it eventually gets to that point, will be considering. In your view, what do you make of this list?
Section 188 of the Constitution says that gross misconduct is a grave or serious violation of the provisions of the Constitution. It's a grave violation of the provisions of the Constitution, or please listen to this, or any conduct which, in the opinion of the House, amounts to gross misconduct. But what the Supreme Court said in the case of Inakuji and Adeleke, 2007, is that even though the House of Assembly, in his opinion, may characterize the conduct as gross misconduct, that characterization is not up to the air, it's not open-ended. It has to still be within the confines of the performance of the functions of the office of the governor. So, for example, where they are saying that the governor has failed to present a budget. Of course, if you are running a state without a budget, without an appropriation law, that itself is a violation of the Constitution by virtue of Section 180 of the Constitution and even Section 162. You require a budget. You require a budget for you to be able to run a state. If you look at the provisions of the Constitution on expenditure of public funds, several provisions of the Constitution. But in this case, there is a dispute between the House of Assembly and the governor on what budget is to be implemented. I have read that the governor, for example, has said that the Ipo Kibas, who was appointed sole administrator, the National Assembly had passed the budget for him to implement, and the governor is claiming that that is what he is still implementing. So some of the other allegations, these matters will have to go before the panel which the chief judge is to constitute. And the House must prove the allegations with particularity, point by point, fact by fact. Now, if they are saying, for example, there are persons whose nomination or appointment requires legislative approval, have assumed functions, and the governor have accorded them recognition without recourse to the House. Again, that will be a serious matter that the House will have to look at. They will have to itemize the identities of these persons, the portfolio they are occupying, when they assume office, evidence of performance and assumption of those offices. And these are facts that they have to set out. As I indicated, the allegations and the particulars of the gross misconduct is not yet in the public domain. But let me tell you historically, based on legal history in this country, there are very few instances in our country where impeachment of governors or deputy governors have scaled through judicial scrutiny. In the majority of the cases that have gone before the courts have always struck down the impeachment proceedings due to failure of the House of Assembly to comply with the process. But let me make the point. I don't want Nigerians to be carried away that this is just a matter of legal sophistry. What is playing out in Rivers State is a clear political enmity between the Minister of the FCT and Fubara. So let us not just be talking about the Constitution as if the House of Assembly itself necessarily cares about the Constitution. This is politics that also has to do with the allocation of the state. This is a state that is so rich, so endowed with resources. We are dealing with a situation where the FCT minister has alleged that there is about 600 billion for grabs, and is accusing some political players in the country of having interest in that money. So this is about the money of Rivers State. This is about the interest of individuals that has now been elevated as a state affair. Because what is really the grievance between the Rivers State House of Assembly and the governor? Are they fighting over the roads that the governor has failed to construct? Is this about the healthcare for the people of Rivers State. It talks about the welfare of civil servants. What is the gravamen of the dispute between them? This is politics that they are playing. And it is a travesty that Rivers people have to pay with their blood. Rivers people have to pay with underdevelopment while these partisan skirmishes are going on. And guess what? The House of Assembly members also claim, many of them, that they have defected to the APC. In which history, in how many instances have you seen the governor in the same party and the House of Assembly members in the same party proceeding on impeachment? In which example have you seen that? So it is not very common. So what is playing out is politics, and it saddens me. Campaign has no comments. You have the former governor now going local government by local government, basically campaigning ahead of next year, 2027. That should not be tolerated. In the same Abuja that he supervises as minister, a nurse was killed brutally, a lawyer was killed, all within a space of few days. Where is the minister of the FCT in the governance of the FCT? Why is he so obsessed with River State? Why is he issuing threats to people not to come to River State? Why is he trying to detect the destiny of River State? So I want Nigerians not to be carried away that this is just about law. What is playing out is a clear demonstration of the cancerous nature of Godfatherism. It's a situation where a godson has now been declared an enemy by the Godfather.
Right.
So I hope that in the fullness of time, that if this matter goes through the legal process that I have outlined, that we will get to see the gist of the allegations. We'll get to see the substance of the allegation. But the president has to call the minister to order.
Well,
simply cannot continue like this. We cannot continue like this.
Well,
and you have the minister in the country basically going out as commander-in-chief. Telling people not to come to the state. This cannot continue ad infinitum. There has to be an end to the madness that is going on in Rivers State. We cannot continue to simply sit down and begin to talk and talk and talk. Let the president call the minister to order. He should return to his office, discharge his ministerial functions, and allow the people of Rivers State to breathe.
Matter of fact, Mr. Effiong, the Joint Unions Action Committee, FCTA Secretariat, put out a statement yesterday to basically issue a warning based on unresolved and long-standing labor issues affecting its members. Effective from 7th of January 2026, they'd given a 7-day ultimatum to the FCT minister on all of those issues. So they're about to take, action if these issues are not resolved. In fact, that list has about 18 issues that they have listed. So yes, indeed, there's a lot of work to be done in the nation's capital by the FCT minister. But, we have noticed a common thread, the fact that this is more political than anything. So the law is being used as a tool, basically. And it begs the question, does the law not envisage these things such that you have political discussions, agreement, and whatever, and then you now use the law, you use taxpayers' money to try to now enforce whatever it is that you agreed behind closed doors politically that didn't even concern the citizens who, what they actually want is governance. So the big question is that an issue that the law does not really foresee, and perhaps in subsequent amendments or handling of the law, we're able to deal with this? But because of time, Mr. Effiong, we have to anchor at this point. But you can speak to that briefly, just for about 30 seconds as we wind down.
Thank you. So let me, for example, speak to the issue of the agreement. There is no way in law that an agreement between the president and a governor on matters that the governor has constitutional powers can be deemed as an impeachable offense. For example, when you as president, you are dictating to a governor of a state who you should appoint as commissioners, that was unconstitutional. So ab initio, the agreement in the villa had no legal basis. It was an unconstitutional document. The paper on which that agreement was written more value than the agreement itself on the basis of law. So I do not understand why they are making that a matter for impeachment. But as I have rightly noted, this is about the destiny of Rivers State, the money of Rivers State. And I do hope that this matter will be resolved. Now, there are two ways that the governor can get out of this. Right. His fate now lies with the panel to be set up by the chief judge and, of course, the president. If the president does not intervene and save his neck, his only recourse will be the panel that the chief judge will set up. If that panel is not favorably disposed to him, I do not see anything that will stop Fubara's impeachment.
Right.
But let this be a lesson to the political class in Nigeria about the dangers of Godfatherism. And Wike must also learn that power is transient.
All right.
We can look at Malami today. They look at Malami today. Malami, as we are speaking this morning, is having his breakfast in prison. This was the man who was deemed larger than life. Today, is prostrating, is undergoing the process of the law. Wike's day of reckoning is going to come in this country. So he has to be circumspect. He has to think about his place in history. He simply cannot continue on this trajectory.
Well, very valid points you made. Well, the former Attorney General was granted bail, you know, 500 million now, and he was asked to drop his travel documents and the rest. So you make a very valid point. Power is transient. Interesting times we're in, but we have to thank you so much, Mr. Enibe, for shedding some light on this. And, you know, to put things in further perspective, the last time they tried to impeach him, there were 19 impeachable allegations against him. So this time we have 8. I don't know if to call that an improvement or not. But Mr. Enibe, legal practitioner, thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, there is the politics. And there's the other issue that Nigerians are paying attention to right now, which is football. I tell you, Nigerians are probably paying more attention to the match which the Super Eagles will play tomorrow than to what is playing out in Rivers State. And we have joining us in a moment, Pooja, sports journalist from Marrakesh. Stay with us, we'll be right back.